It's amazing to think how seemingly insignificant events have the capacity to change the course of history. One such event happened in early March 1707 in the small town of Stellenbosch, in a country that would later become known as South Africa. The local magistrate, Johannes Starrenberg, was called upon to deal with 4 young men who were disrupting the peace. They had too much to drink, and they were running like crazy people down the street. One of them was a 16-year-old boy named Hendrik Biebouw. They were caught by the magistrate and were immediately caned. The magistrate must have threatened to deport them because official records state that the young Biebouw responded to the beating by screaming, "I will not leave. I am an Afrikaner. Even if the magistrate were to beat me to death or put me in jail, I shall not be, nor will I stay silent." The magistrate did in fact send them to jail and recommended that they be deported. The government at the time had the authority to take single men who were mostly loafing on the streets into the service of the Dutch East India Company or to send them away. 1 month later, 3 of the 4 young men were given corporal punishment in public. Biebouw was not there. In the available records, his name is crossed out with only the word "missing" appearing next to it. It is uncertain what had happened to him, but it is assumed that he was deported to Batavia, today's Indonesia. Legend has it that the ship that he was on got shipwrecked north of where Perth is today, and that he spent the rest of his life among the indigenous people of what is today Australia. The incident is also evident of a well-documented emerging friction between the government and the citizens of the Cape. Other than what I've just told you, we do not know much about the life of Hendrik Biebouw, yet his "I am an Afrikaner" proclamation has become a legendary tale to follow among generations of Afrikaners, and especially among Afrikaners of the 21st century. This was the first time that the word Afrikaner was used in this sense, and Biebouw's statement is generally interpreted as a declaration of an emerging cultural identity and a creed to remain in Africa, the continent where this identity has taken shape. Prior to this incident, the word Afrikaner was sometimes used to refer to certain sections of local coloured communities, such as the Free Blacks or the Khoi, who were born in the Cape. Today, Biebouw is sometimes referred to as the first Afrikaner, and the year 1707 is sometimes mentioned as the year in which the Afrikaner people became a distinct nation because of this. Obviously, history is not that simple, and there remains a healthy debate to be had about when and how Afrikaner identity became sufficiently distinct from their Dutch, German, and French ancestry so as to be referred to as a unique nation. These debates do not take away from the significance of Biebouw's claim. The Afrikaner people do indeed descend from European ancestry, but we take a particular pride in declaring that even though we remain Westerners from a civilizational perspective, we are not European, but African. We are African in the sense that the unique culture, history, and tradition of the Afrikaner people took shape not in Europe, but in Africa. We take such pride in this fact that we named our language Afrikaans and our nation the Afrikaners after the African continent. Now, there is something comical in the fact that the so-called first Afrikaner became known as such because he disrupted the peace after having had too much to drink. But this is not a fact that Afrikaners shy away from. We tend to see this more as an indication of a humble origin. I, for one, do not agree that the Afrikaner people became Afrikaners in 1707, as Afrikaner identity was still to be shaped by major events in the centuries that followed, including the development of the Afrikaans language, our intellectual tradition, the Great Track, and the establishment of the Boer republics. Nonetheless, This seemingly unimportant event remains significant as a major development in Afrikaner history. It underlines our resolve to remain in Africa, to protest when necessary, and to continue with our pursuit to build a future for our people, regardless of adverse circumstances.